Paula, thank you so much for working with us on this interview. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here today.
One of the things when I met you via Zoom, I love your energy.
Yeah.
And I love the way you express yourself and the way you're just so confident. I absolutely love it. And I could really sense that your own identity. So can you tell us how can women develop an identity that works for them?
I think firstly, I think the definition of identity is how you define and identify yourself. I think a lot of that comes to the values, what some of those special and selective characters and quality that you associate yourself with, and you will consciously want to make an effort, right, to represent yourself. And also for certain things that you feel very strongly against, you will choose to stay away from it. Right? I think generally when it comes to developing identity, I think it comes with two processes. Right? I would describe it as one is the internal inside out. So that is a fairly consistent process throughout the year. Like you get a sense about how do you respond to things, whether you like or dislike certain things, whether you are the emotional type or always the very calm type, or there are certain things you're just very good at, right? So you get to know yourself along the way, and that's the inside out. There's also the part about outside in. As in, I think outside in is about your upbringing, the events and the experience you go through. Also with some of these key relationships you have developed along the way, whether it's in terms of parents, siblings, or coaches, mentors, those very intimate relationships that you can have along the way. And those relationships will give you a different perspective in terms of who you are. And sometimes that can be very different from what you know yourself. And so that's the outside in. And I think when it comes to developing identity of yourself, the starting point is always inside out, because you need to have a more sense of self-awareness, in the sense that if I say certain things, that is just me, because it always comes out from me, right? When it comes into this situation, I would always probably be the first one to put up my hand, and that's just me, right? And I think you feel very comfortable being in that state, and you also notice, hey, actually it becomes part of my strength, and you consciously also make effort to sharpen your skills, and that becomes a part of your selling point, and then you can use it to a way that to excel in the domain that you select to be specialized in. Right? So this is about self-awareness. And I think another point I want to share is also about have a more of a growth mindset, meaning to say we all need to recognize we are not perfect, right? So sometimes our stakeholders or our partners will provide certain feedback, and it's hard to take, right?
Very difficult sometimes. Very difficult.
Yeah. So when I was young, I also constantly get a lot of good comments. Then the last sentence is that can work on your areas for improvement, take feedback or improve on your feedback. So I think that part of the process, it took me a long time to develop. But I think it's also a conscious effort, because you need to learn to take criticisms to improve. People tell you things that you're not good at. That also is a reminder of also a message, and you can internalize and see, and then you don't end up in the in a situation whereby those things become the limit of how big you can become, right? So that growth mindset is very important. Then lastly, I think that is also a very, very important part about outside in. It's about cultivating and investing your time to to have uplifting relationship that helps you to really catalyst your development. Because there are certain situation where you want to make a choice, you're not sure, and you need someone to advise you, or someone probably just to push you to go for that bigger thing that you're meant for. And I think that's where your mentor, those bosses that helped you, they will give you and they will lead you through the path forward. So that will also help you to develop a very conscious self-identity to say, okay, I think this is who I am, and I need to go with that path. So I think investing in that, cultivating an uplifting relationship is also important. But I think one thing also to be very conscious of is stay away from those negative things, right? And people who sometimes will like belittle you, make you feel, they will try to pull you down. And those things needs to be also a bit conscious, because there are people like this. But don't let those noises, hurt your confidence. Stay where you are with those people who are willing to find good qualities in you and invest their time in you.
I love what you said, because upon reflection and about when I hear some of the keywords that you were using, like knowing your strengths, I think knowing strengths is so important. I think that we are born to thrive in our strengths.
Yes.
So sometimes it's not as if that we can't work on our weakness, but perhaps our times are better spent in our strengths.
Yeah.
The strengths development part and so forth. And I think when we focus in strengths, the conversation also changes, because it's not about, Paula, your weakness is. It's more really about, Paula, I'm not really utilizing your strengths. So it becomes a little bit more neutral, perhaps a little bit less personal. And even the other day when I was going for a run, I was thinking about this, self-reflection. When people talk about self-reflection, and I think sometimes also from the Asian culture perspective, especially from Chinese family, like you and I are from, self-reflection is almost like we've done something wrong. And like like beating ourselves up a little bit. But I think sometimes self-reflection can be so much more. It can be a reflection about what we can do better so we can feel better. And like you said, not necessarily just focus on the negative. Also not too much avoiding, ignoring it, but just understanding that, hey, that negative situation or person or sensation has no value to us. So coming back to your growth mindset, I think that is where it's so valuable. Now, of course, we want growth all the time where possible, especially in business.
Yes.
But sometimes it's okay to balance it out and say that, hey, there's only so much learning that we can take in one day.
Absolutely, I completely agree. In the sense that sometimes we try to be everything, and you end up losing your edges and characteristics. So I think finding your edge, your strength, and play that to the maximum is really important when it comes to identity. And when you are able to sharpen it to a way that it brings out the visibility, you will see that you're on to the next level.
Yeah.
And that visibility is really important. And I think knowing yourself, but also people who are willing to also invest in their time and resources to help you to get some of these visibilities are very important. I think that in a social context, that is what identity is for, right? So I think having that understanding of your strength is very, very key.
Important. Now we talk also a lot about equal opportunity.
Yes.
Having access to equal opportunity is vital, as you say, to women's experience at work. Can you share with us further insight on that?
I think when we talk about equal opportunities, and it has been an agenda on the table for a long time, and we have made some progress, right? But personally, I don't think the progress is enough. I still remember when I was young, my mother works for an organization, and she was trying to juggle between work and taking care of me. I was 6, I think, 4 or 6. and and there's no one to help at home, and she had to brought me to work, and that got her into trouble, and she was kind of get penalized, and it was very hard to take. And my mom is a very strong character, right? She worked whole, and she only retired actually last year when she was 65. So she was. I still remember in a young age she cried because she felt it's unfair, right? I even at this moment it still kind of give a very big impression on myself that it's not fair for you to expect a woman to play so many roles at the same time. And when we talk about equal opportunities, I think we have to also ask this question: until the man is able to take that 50% in the household, I think that we are still far from that 50-50. So there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of equal opportunities, and we still need to do a lot more. And I was just doing a bit of research about gender equality, and basically that is a topic that I'm quite passionate about. I think we made some progress in terms of education and also health and survival in terms of equality, but in terms of political empowerment, in terms of economic participation, it's still very far away. So according to that report, we still need 135 years in order to really reach there. And that is a long period. But I think we are able to do what we are doing right now is because some of these people and strong women have done certain things in the past. Like I always like to quote the example of the Boston Marathon. Right? That was an event that was established in the 1897, and for a total of 75 years, no one raised an eyebrow because no woman is participating.
That's right. Yeah. And
in the year of 1962, there was this first lady, Gabe. She participated wearing her brother's jerseys, and she's the first lady that have done it. And subsequent year, there's this lady. She actually changed her name to abbreviation to say K. She's Catherine Switzer, and she changed her name to K. Switzer to participate in the event. And there was that famous picture about she get pushed out.
That's right. They're trying to grab her.
Exactly, and trying to exclude her from the whole thing. I think a lot of this, and that was a very strong message sent by the women back then to say, hey, it's time for us to participate. And it's because of those voices are heard, we are able to do certain things that seems to be normal today, right? And I think one of the things, if we look for in terms of future, I think the automation and AI are changing a lot, and even the current COVID is also impacting the society to a very big extent. I think there are some early projections because of COVID. Generally, I think about 5% of the women lose their jobs, but the same statistic for men is only 3%, right? And when it comes to future-ready skills like jobs related to cloud computing, the woman is seriously underrepresented in that space. We only have about 14% of women in the cloud computing space, only 20% when it comes to AI, right? And I think in some other domains might be slightly higher. But those numbers are astounding, right? So I think we just need to continue to advocate that it's important to have that equal voices heard at those tables, because if you don't, there's certain issues or certain angles that I think men, they are willing to help, but they just can't understand what kind of challenge you might go through.
Yeah, exactly, because we're not women.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the stories that Sheryl Sandberg shared in her book Lean In, right? Is that as a pregnant woman, you become heavy and you whack your way to try to find a parking lot. But with in a tech environment, probably because of this, the percentage of women is low, and then they don't realize this is actually an issue, and it only take her to speak to Larry Page, and just it's done, right? So I think these kind of things is important for us to reflect upon and say, how can we make this society more supportive, right? So that women at the same time can meet their social expectations. I also agree, I have 3 daughters. It's very important for me to be in their lives and to provide that support. But also we have that additional capacity and the talent. We want to excel in the society. And how can we enable them? Because I think we are the 50% of the productivity, right? And I think that is a message we want to keep on reminding ourselves, that we need to have that equal voices of women at the table and not to take things for granted. Recently, I think there's also a publication about Nobel Prize claiming that I'm not going to have quota for women, which is fine. I mean, that's all fine, but when I was looking at the data, right, so in the science and technology field, there's only 10% of the natural science professors are female, and the number goes even lower in East Asia. So, and actually where I came from, I came from a science and tech major. And actually across all my high schools, universities, masters, it's always the female who top the class. So what happened?
Yeah, what happened to them?
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing is because some of these most talented women, they just basically feel like there's no choice. I don't really have a choice because of certain expectations that was placed on me. And I don't blame them, because as a mother, it comes as instinct, right? So those things really actually pull them back, and they can't excel in the field. And that's where I think a lot of time in terms of career or in terms of this kind of long Nobel Prize, you need to spend your lifetime to become a domain expert. And it's very hard to stop and start and stop and start, right? So that continuation is really important. So I think one thing from the society-wise, I think we need to be more supportive and allow more women to come out, and so that they can continue and be more resilient to some of these things and expectations. And on the other side, I think women, we ourselves, also need to have that consciousness that we need to, it's very easy to say quit and just go back and do things, but you always have that part in your heart that tells you your talents are being wasted, you need to come out. So do come out when that voice is calling on you. And that's very important for us to continue to and also set an example for the next generation, right? So I think that's both sides in terms of having that equal voices. And sometimes I think when it comes to women, we also have that internal part about sometimes we think we are not good enough, right? We have that imposter syndrome that, no, this is not because of I'm talented, it's because I'm just hardworking, or you know. So but I think that part about knowing and valuing yourself is very important. It's not because of anything else that you get to where you are. It's all because of the hard work and the talent, right? A lot of females also need to realize, and I think the leaders as well, promote them based on their potential. And that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely loving what you're advocating in terms of women take action, women let's speak up. You know, often than not, you know, how would you advise for your fellow women counterpart to yield the line between never stop asking and frustration, and like you say, giving up? How do you balance that really fine line so it doesn't frustrate you and, you know, attract unnecessary name calling, for example, when you're demanding for something?
Yeah, I think it's not easy. I would say, especially in also the Asian culture, we have been taught to be compliant all the time, be a good
diplomatic
kid, be a good girl, you know. But I think one thing I have learned in career, right, is actually the best manager or the leader, they don't have to be good in everything, right? They actually just need to be good at asking questions. So the power of questioning is a very important part of our leadership. And I think when it comes to women, when we raise questions, firstly, I think we need to accept that we can ask questions too, right? I mean, our kids ask questions all the time, and it's okay to raise those questions. Secondly, it's also about how do you actually bring it up, right? That's just the skills you can practice and get better along the way. And I think when it comes to people raising eyebrows and say, why is she asking questions? Or I think it's also about how politely you can continue and be very consistent with what you're saying. And that can be a very powerful message too. And when you put that in a social context or for example, in a town hall, you will realize that people will start supporting you, right? Because, and then that's also a natural advantage of females as well, right? When we ask questions, they feel this is a question that has to be addressed. So I think we need to also be confident that a lot of time we get support instead of questioning, instead of like negative feedback. And also it shows that, it also demonstrates, because for you to ask questions, you have to also understand the topic. It shows that you actually understand it very well. And that kind of opportunity is really good for yourself too.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because it really ties back to what we started this conversation with, which is the identity. That sense of identity, the sense of self, the sense of awareness, consciousness, you know, and whatever that we should have to establish exactly who we are at that point in time, because life events could change who we are.
Yes.
You know, in a split second. But I think at that moment in time, it is okay to express, because I don't think anybody is experienced enough to know it all.
Absolutely.
Right, and everybody also will feel some form of a imposter syndrome, whether you are male, female, transgender, whichever you are. I mean, as long as you've got a heart and feeling, generally as a normal person, you will have some form of that fear in you. Am I actually good enough? I think the biggest difference is taking action, right? So can you tell me a person, name one person who inspires you? Anyone?
I would say it's the late Judge of the United States, Ruth Ginsburg. I think her story and her values really inspired a lot of women, and also I admire for what she has done in terms of advocating and really push forward the agenda of gender equality, this agenda, because it's not easy, right? And also from a legislative perspective and from a ruling perspective, those kind of precedents that she has set really send a very strong message in the society. So I think that is really the kind of people, and also the ladies. She's tiny, right? She's not big, or and she doesn't speak very loudly as well. But
as a judge, she's so endearing.
Yeah, and she's very she sends very powerful message.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about being physically strong. It's about how do you send a strong message through your influence and by doing certain things. And that's what I really admire about her as a role model. To a certain extent, sometimes I should ask myself, like, should I get a law degree or something? Or trying to convince my girl to do one.
Why not? Why not?
But I think that's really important. And just now I was also having a conversation with my friend, right? I just with my partner sometimes as well. So why you are so passionate about this agenda? I say it's because I have 3 girls. I want them when they grow up, they are going to have a much more friendly and supportive society and more civilized in a way that they can excel even bigger work than where I came from. And this kind of agenda is always that if you don't go forward, you will slip behind. And it's so easy to slip behind. There's still so many countries that we are still observing, even to the basics, that for female to have education is not happening.
Yeah.
Right?
What will be the one vision, and this is going to be my final question, what will be the one vision you have for your 3 daughters? Because every time when you talk about them, your eyes lit up. So I want to continue that conversation.
Yeah, but I think I have to say, it comes to the topic about identity. I think one important identity I have for myself is a mother, right? It's a working mother, and I would like to, and one of the biggest part of my source is coming from them. I look at them, I got a lot of energy to say, okay, mommy is ready to go and fight, and do those kind of things. But I think for them, I want them to firstly be a useful person, right? You are able to help people. You are able to add value, right? In whichever domain that you select. And secondly, of course, I want them to be very happy, right? I think it's very easy to set a very big, I want them to become a lawyer or to become a doctor one day. But I think all these successes that you define today may not be even relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
In a future context.
It's true.
So and I think the most important thing is I want them to have the right values, and that's so important, because those are the things will teach them how to cope in a difficult situation, how to survive, right? I mean, right now we don't talk about survival skills, but in real context, it's about surviving. And how do you still stay positive, find pleasure in life, be happy, and that's really important for females as well.
Yeah, beautiful vision. Love it. Wow. Once again, thank you so much, Paula. It's
Thank you,
such a
everyone, for
pleasure
having
meeting you in
me.
person. And your words of wisdom will go leaps and bounds.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Lovely.